everywhere. Look, before we start going one-on-one through these guys, I actually read this morning. One guy in particular you wrote about was Roger McCreary, the Titans' second-round pick. Let's just start there. You wrote about him, a great article.
Yeah, thank you for that. I certainly had a lot to say about it, right? I really just thought I maybe got a little long-winded, but I had so many thoughts because that was the pick that really fascinated me the most. Again, of course, everyone wants to talk about Malik Willis, Treylon Burks, but that McCreary pick really kind of came out of left field a little, didn't it, right? When you sort of consider, the overall makeup of that roster, right? This is the fourth time they've spent the top 100 pick on a corner in the last 3 drafts. Right. And typically a general manager will do that, when maybe one or two of those guys haven't worked out. Right. That's already admitting defeat and trying to make up for a mistake. But it becomes more curious because you look at those picks. I mean, Christian Fulton has already panned out, in my opinion. Sure, he has to string together more good seasons, but he was terrific in 2021. I don't think they have any concerns about Christian Fulton's ability to play on the boundary. I thought Elijah Mullen was really good as their nickel last year. Started the year kind of rough, not so great showings against Arizona in week 1, Seattle in week 2. He got roughed up a little bit, but you saw that progression as the year went on, really strung together some great performances down the stretch. So this is a good corner group, right? And to add Roger McCreary to it, instead of drafting an offensive lineman, instead of double dipping at receiver with that selection, certainly interesting. But I'm a big fan of McCreary. You read the article, Nikki, so you're familiar with my opinion on him, but I really think, you turn on the Alabama tape from this past year, that was the most fun I've had, I think, scouting a single game from a cornerback maybe ever. Because you'll get this as well, Blaine. You'll turn on this tape, you'll watch these cornerbacks. Sometimes they get targeted once or twice throughout the entire course of a game, right? Certainly you can take away stuff from that as well. Probably a good thing, of course, right, that the opposing quarterback's not looking in their direction and not looking to attack them. But you certainly get the most out of scouting a guy when he has to compete at the catch point, right, when he is under fire and the bullets are flying. And they targeted Roger McCreary 18 times in that game, Alabama did. It was astounding, right? And I never got the feeling that was because they didn't have a high opinion of him. He was out there covering, Jameson Williams and covering their best pass catchers. So they really had no choice. Alabama's not going to go away from their 5-star receivers, right? They're NFL-worthy pass catchers. So I took so much from that tape. He's so feisty. He's so competitive. And I guarantee John Robinson took a lot from that tape as well. He allowed 7 catches in that game for, I think the yard total was something like 35 yards. He didn't give up a whole lot. So I'm a big fan of the player. I think it's fair to maybe question the allocation of resources, certainly, based on the makeup of this roster. But I do think in 2-3 years, people probably won't care about that because they got a really good cornerback.
Justin Melo, our guest, breaking down the Titans draft on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Justin, did you get to interview any of the Titans draft picks at all? Did you ever talk to them or anything like that?
I did. I believe I ended up with 3, or if you include the UDFAs, a few more. But I did get a chance to speak with Kyle Phillips, the slot receiver.
Oh, yeah.
They drafted there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a chance to speak with the tight end as well, Chig Okonkwo as well. And there's a third. It's just escaping me now. I'll probably swing it together here in a minute or two. But I believe I ended up interviewing 3 of their picks. And I also had a couple of the UDFAs, Haskell Garrett out of Ohio State, too.
Oh, okay. Well, just kind of, I'm a real big on mental guy. Naturally, if you get drafted, I feel like you got the tools to be an NFL talented player. But how far does that take you? So was there anything that stood out when you even interviewed any of these guys just on their mental makeup and who they are?
Yeah, I thought Kyle Phillips was an interesting one, and I thought that was an interesting pick as well because I think that's a guy that probably has a chance to come in and earn some snaps out of the slot immediately, right? Because, they haven't brought – yeah, it's a great route runner, so technical, so advanced, so savvy. Remember, they haven't brought back Chester Rogers, right, who ran the most snaps out of the slot for them a year ago. They paid a lot of money for Adam Humphries a couple of years ago, who, obviously is a bit of a similar player. It's clearly John Robinson has an affinity for those types. So when I spoke with Kyle, I don't want to say predictably, but when you ask him about some of the guys that he studies and models his game after, I could have guessed the first 2 answers out of his mouth, right? Yeah, well, actually, it was Cole Beasley and Hunter Renfrow.
Okay,
right?
the Renfrow thing I get for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, which didn't those guys that win underneath, right? Certainly, and make themselves available for their quarterback. I think the Titans kind of missed a guy like that last year, right? Like Mr. Rogers strung together some okay performances. I don't think he was quite as reliable and as savvy as maybe Kyle Phillips has a chance to be. So there's a route for him to get on the field here quickly. I like what you said there, Blaine, about him, is that because he's such a good route runner, he's ready to play a role. Right, in the NFL, it's not going to be too much for him too fast if he ends up earning a role there. And I've just recalled, Hassan Hoskins, a running back out of Michigan, was a third player I got a chance to speak with ahead of the draft. He's another guy. That was a pick I think a few people were a little sour on when they announced it. But that was one I liked. I had him. I've been informed that I had him higher on my big board than most people did. But you turn on that tape against Ohio State. That was such a big game for Michigan, right? Finally beating them after so many years of getting handed defeats by their arch rival. I think he had 5 touchdowns in that game. It was an outrageous performance by a running back that really fits the culture. I think in Tennessee. Now, in the past, sometimes they've gone with a thunder and lightning thing. They tried to draft Darrington Evans out of App State a few years ago, who's a totally different player than Derrick Henry is. That obviously didn't work out as, Evans battled multiple injuries, and they've already released him, obviously. So now they go in and say, you know what? To hell with all that. We're gonna go with thunder and thunder, right? Like as soon as that pick was made, I had a good friend of mine, who covers the Houston Texans, shoot me a text and say, I don't think anyone in the AFC South is looking forward to having to tackle Haskins once Henry's out of the game. I mean, you talk about not giving the opposing defense a break. This guy is extremely physical. He's a punishing runner who keeps his legs churning through contact. Remember, they let Deontay Foreman walk in free agency, right? He's opted to sign a deal with Carolina. So I wasn't shocked that they drafted a running back in this class. I thought they would target one on day 3, and I think they've got a pretty good one in Haskins.
Yeah, speaking of Haskins, and when I'm watching tape, I'm thinking I'm going to just watch running back. I see him running down on special teams, making tackles and being really physical with guys trying to block him. Did that stand out when you watched him too as well?
It certainly did. And one point I'll add to that as well, Blaine, is I thought he was terrific in pass protection, right? I thought that was a really underrated aspect of his game. Now, not much of a pass catcher, and that's where, to me, it becomes a little curious on how they're going to utilize him. Maybe they're looking to give Henry more of a break at times on first and second down, because with Dontrell Hilliard there still in the mix, he's certainly the best pass catcher they have in that room. Haskins is very similar to Henry as a pass catcher, where I think he could be an option as a check down. Maybe you run a screen for him, but he's certainly not going to, really get out there, run routes and threaten safeties and linebackers like Darrington Evans was supposed to, or like Hilliard can. So I am curious to see how they work him into the mix, but I do think he's a really good pass protector, and I agree that he'll quickly earn a role on special teams too.
Well, lastly for me, I wanted you to talk about the tight end, Okongwu.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a guy. Look, the tight end room last year was not very good, right? I'll just call it what it is. I think they certainly made a mistake there. Certainly the contract Jonnu Smith got, it's easy to understand why they couldn't afford to pay what he got, but they missed him so much, right? In so many areas, not just the physical ability, what he does after the catch, how he created for himself. People forget he also had like 8 touchdowns that year they let him go. They lost a lot of red zone production. They were handing him the ball in the red zone, right, in his final year, where he got a couple of scores via backfield carries. So they missed him so much. The dual threat ability as well. One of my biggest concerns about the tight end room going into last season was the lack of a guy that's a dual threat weapon, right? Offenses nowadays are so careful not to tip their hand to opposing defenses. The issue I had with that is, well, when Anthony Firtzer's on the field, it's probably pass. And when Jeff Swain's on the field, it's probably run, right? And that concern kind of came to fruition, right? Surprise, surprise, Anthony Firtzer did not improve as a run blocker, and Jeff Swain didn't improve as a pass catcher. So they were very one-dimensional at the position last season. You bring in a guy like this who's very similar to Jonnu Smith, I think, with the measurables are almost dead on. You look at the height, you look at the weight, you look at the combine testing. It's actually kind of eerie how similar it is, and it doesn't shock me that they maybe identified him on day 3 as a guy that can be their next Jonnu Smith. Now, I think he's a bit raw as a blocker. I think there is some improvement is necessary there. So he's probably not going to come in and be that dual threat guy immediately. But people forget, I don't think Jonnu Smith was a very good blocker when he first got to Tennessee either. He got a lot better, right, as the years went by. So I think Chig can follow a similar path. He's certainly going to commit himself. I did get to spend some time with him, as I said, pre-draft. I came away with the impression that he's a hardworking, humble kid. I mean, look, anytime you're a day 3 guy coming out of Maryland, chances are, you're going to approach it with a humble attitude and be ready to work. So I got the impression that he is that kind of kid. And lost in all this, everyone, of course, was talking about Ryan Tannehill's comments about mentoring and stuff. One thing that really intrigued me is when he talked about Chig, and it didn't get enough, again, it's not, clickbaity maybe, so it didn't get enough coverage, I thought, on Twitter yesterday. But Tannehill's eyes kind of lit up when they brought up this rookie tight end. He said, oh, man, I turned on the tape. You see him creating for himself after the catch. You can hit him in the flat, and he picks up 10, 15 yards after the catch. So you can see Tannehill's excited to work with him, and with good reason, because he's a really good fit. This offense has always prioritized getting big, strong, fast pass catchers at A.J. Brown, Traylon Burks, Jonnu Smith. Hell, even a guy like Derrick Henry, right? They love big, fast, strong guys that can make stuff happen for themselves, can create for themselves, and this tight end is that type of player.
We're on with Justin Melo at the Draft Network.
Justin, we only got about 45 seconds left. Obviously, Traylon Burks has been analyzed a whole lot, that pick. Just Malik Willis, when you see him, obviously raw, he wound up going in the 3rd round. Not the most accurate quarterback, certainly a great runner, 45 seconds or so. Just quick report on him. What can the Titans help him with? What can he get better at?
Perfect landing spot for him, a place he can come in and learn how to read defenses at a higher level than he did at Liberty. It's good that he doesn't have to start right away. That was always the best outcome for him. Electric thrower of the football, electric athlete. It's really the mental side he has to get down. Go spend time with quarterbacks coach Pat O'Hara, Todd Downing offensive coordinator, new passing game coordinator Tim Kelly, and just learn the mental aspects of the game. If you can get that part of it turned around, certainly you're looking at an electric top-tier quarterback.